Yeah, before you start the taking off process proper, the first thing you do or consider is to describe the work you are doing, just as you have here, taking off for the proposed substructural work, and you state the drawing number which has already been given to you as drawing number QTS 102/2024, and of course you can also insert your date. And the BSMF4 revise of NIQS was used to prepare this taking off. And in case of this kind of drawing where all details have not been captured, because this is just a simple plan we sketched to further buttress what we are doing in terms of substructural work. So it did not capture much detail of the drawing, so we have made some assumptions, and you can see all dimensions are in millimeters and the site is a virgin land. There's no underground and overhead service access or across to the site, and the topsoil is 150 mm thick here, which will be excavated. And we are assuming also that the water table is below excavation, and also these are the reinforcement covers we have estimated for the basis, which is 40 mm, and columns at 25 mm. And on this very side also we have assumed that 5 number trees with 1200 mm gates are located. So the next thing you also do is to take time and list your taking of items. This is to ensure that your taking off is done chronologically, and at the same time you are not omitting or repeating any work item. And the first one is excavating and filling. Under it we have removing of trees, we have site clearance and site preparation, excavation, support to phases of excavation. We also have disposal, we have returning excavated materials, we have filling obtained from excavated materials, and of course imported filling before you have the DPM. This is under the excavating and filling section. And the next one is concrete. You look at in situ concrete works. Under the in situ concrete work, we have the number one, which is the concrete itself. We consider mass concrete, which include your blinding and concrete footing, and the horizontal work. You have vertical work also, has to do with concrete. Then under it, we still have formworks to side of foundation and basis. We have formwork to edges of horizontal work and to side of attached columns. Then we have under in situ concrete, we still have reinforcement. You look at the high yield bars and also mesh, that's fabric mesh in case of concrete bed. And lastly, we have menswear, where you carry out your block work and foundation up to the concrete bed level. Alright, once we are done with the taking off list, we start with the first item on the list, which is excavating and filling. And under this excavating and filling, we have the first item, which is the removal of trees. And you can remember we assume 5 numbers of trees located on site, so we have to book the number of trees, which is 5. Remember, the gate was assumed to be 1200 millimeter, which falls within this category of 500 to 1500 millimeter. And having done this, having booked for our tree removal, the number of trees to be removed, we go over to clearing of the site. And in clearing the site, we established these dimensions for the length. As you can see, 7,000 plus this plus 3,500 plus 6,000 plus 3,500 mm, that gave us 25. How did we get these figures or these dimensions? We started it from our drawing, you see 7,000 for the length, plus 5,000, plus 3,005, plus 6,000, plus another 3,005. These are all in millimeter, and when we sum them, we have 25,000 millimeter. And then we must also add half of our base, because this very dimension in terms of the length did not get to the edge of the column base this way and another edge that way. So in that case, we must add half of this base, which is half of 2,000. And since we have the two bases, we have to slash it by 2, and that is what we have just done. We added the half of the base slash 2, that gave us 2,000 millimeter, and when we sum this plus this, we got 27,000 millimeter. Then in like manner, we also have to establish our breadth. You can see from what we have here, looking from the drawing, from the plan, this is the width of the building or the breadth, which the dimension has been given 5,250 millimeter plus 5,250 millimeter plus 6,000 millimeter. When you add these three dimensions, you will have 16,500 millimeter. And having generated this quantity, you can go ahead to describe before booking, and in your description you can state site clearance, clearing site vegetation and other growth, and dispose off site. So your quantity is what you will book in the dimension column. You have 27,000 millimeter, but when you are booking, it now turns to be in meter, which is 27.00 meter, and the width 16.50 meter. And if you want to go ahead with the squaring, you can multiply this by this to give you 445.50 meter. So after the site clearance, we move over to site preparation, and in this site preparation, we are talking about topsoil removal, and we also fall back to our assumption we made. We stated that the thickness of the topsoil which is to be preserved in spoil heap, is 150 mm. So we go ahead to book the quantity, which is 27.00 meter by 16.00 meter, and this quantity is the total area of this building. So in that case, we must make some deduction. We must deduct for void, which is this place that's not going to be affected by the building, or this area. These are the void. So we must deduct the void, which is 13.00 by 6.00, and these materials which have been excavated must be retained, and it should be stated the distance from the point of excavation in which the material should be kept, and the handling should be left at the discretion of the contractor. So when we are doing topsoil removal, it is considered as a superficial item, but upon removal, when we want to retain that same material, it turns out to be a cubic item. So in that case, we must multiply by 0.15, which is the thickness of that topsoil we removed. And we go ahead by considering the excavation proper, which is the trench and the pit excavation. So starting with the pit excavation, we want to establish the depth of the pit excavation. So already we have 1,300 plus 50 mm. How did we generate this figure? We go to our section. In our section, we have from the natural ground level to the base before the blinding base level, we have 1300 mm, so that is why we have 1300 here. So when we get to the bottom of excavation, that is when we extend to this blinding level, which is 50 mm, so we must add it to this to get the overall depth of excavation from natural gain level to bottom of excavation. So that gave us 1350, but this is not the actual length of excavation, because the trench or the pit excavation commences from a reduced level, but not necessarily from the NGL, which is the natural ground level. So the depth of pit excavation stands at 1200 millimeter. So we move to the trench excavation. We first of all determine the length for the single wall, because in the drawing we have single wall which is captured in section YY, and we have double wall which is in section SS. So we first of all establish the total gate of the single wall, and by doing that we have the total length, which we have already established as 25 meter or 25,000 millimeter, which is the addition of this dimension across the length of the building. Then, since we have this particular length in two places, meaning we have the same length here, then we have to slash by 2. These two multiplied by 25,000 millimeter will give us 50,000. Then we have to consider the horizontal distance again, which is here. This trench line for the single wall is 12 meters, so that is why we have 12 meters here. And then after the horizontal axis, we consider the vertical axis, which is the breadth of the building, and we have established that already to be 10.5 meter, which is 10,500 millimeter, and we have the width both sides, so we slash by 2 to give us 21,000 millimeter. So if we add the when we sum these three dimensions, we have 83,000 millimeter length, but this is not the actual length of the trench excavation for the single wall. So we have to make some deduction. So we will less twice half of the corner bases. If you look at the plan, we have 5 major corner bases, which is here 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that is why we are going to less twice half of the base, which is for base 1. We have 2,000 millimeter size of it, so we less twice half of it because it's at both ends. So it's like the number of the bases at the corner. So at the end of the day, when you multiply 5 by 2 by half by 2,000 millimeter, you're going to have 10,000 millimeter. So we also less the full column bases that are cut in the trench line. If you look at it, we have full column base 1, 2, we have 3, and we have 4, we have 5, and 6. So that is why we made the deduction 6 slash the size of the column base, which is 2,000. So when we multiply this, we're going to have 12,000 millimeter. We also have the 4-number column base 2 that are cut in the trench line. This column base 2, 1, column base 2, this number 2, this 3, and this 4. So that is why we have 4/3005, because the size of the column base 2 is 3005 at the horizontal part of the base. So when you multiply these figures, you have 14,000 millimeter. So when you sum these deductions, you will get this figure 36,000. So we're going to less this 36,000 from the established length. So when we less it, we will have 47,000 millimeters. So in that case, this is our actual overall length of excavation for just the single wall. So in like manner, we also consider the double wall, and we have established the double wall already, which is indicated in section SS, but from the plan we have established it to be 10.5. That's the distance of this double wall rather, and we have it in two places. So that is why we are multiplying by 2 times 10,500 millimeter will give us 21,000 millimeter. So we will also have to less twice the half of the base, because base 2 is 3,500. So we add twice half of the base, and since we have it in two places, 1, 2, and this another double wall, 1, 2. So that's why we multiply, we slash again by 2. So having done this, when we multiply these through, we have 7,000. So if we less 7,000 from 21,000 millimeter, we have 14,000. So this is the length of the trench excavation for the double wall. Now we will go ahead to decipher the depth of the trench excavation. So how do we do that? We look into our section. From this section, the depth from natural ground level to bottom of excavation is 950. But mind you, our trench excavation does not actually commence from this level, but rather it commences immediately after the topsoil level. We have removed the topsoil, so it is at the reduced level we start excavating for our trench. So in that case, we must deduct or less the topsoil thickness, which is 150. So 900 minus 150 will give us 800. This same figure applies to the depth of excavation for the double wall. So immediately we are done with establishing of the quantities, we go ahead to book those quantities in the dimension column, and we also describe what we have just done. In this case, we are excavating the trench and the column bases, and the excavation commences below the original ground level, and the depth does not exceed 2.00 meter deep. So in this case, this is 2.00 by 2.00 by 1.2. This 1.2 is the depth of pit excavation, and this all about for the column base 1, and we have them 11 numbers. That's why we are slashing by 11, and this is for column base 2, that's type 2, and the size is 3.5 meter by 2.0 meter, and it maintains the same depth with that of column base 1, and we have them 4 number, as you can see here. This is type 2, column base 2, another column base 2, and this is the 4th one. So that's why we are slashing by 4. So I haven't booked for the pit excavation, the quantities for pit excavation. We go ahead to book for the uh, trench excavation, and in this case we have the single wall and the double wall. This is the length of the single wall, and this is the length of the double wall. As you can see, the width of the foundation for the single wall is not the same with the other of the double wall. The width varied. So in that case, this is 0.68 for the single wall, and the width is indicated in your section for the double wall. As you can see, this is the width 2925 millimeter, and the width of foundation for single wall is 675. So that's how we got the 0.68 and 0.93, and this is the depth which we have already established from this point where we did depth of trench excavation, where we less 150 topsoil thickness from 950, which was given originally in the drawing. So this the booking of the quantities we have established, and if you check in this description, we have also pointed out that this material we have excavated will be reused, especially for filling, so it can serve the purpose of filling back to foundation. That's why you have this hand sign here.